You know that little voice in your head, the one that sometimes whispers you're overreacting? Well, today we're going to dive into that exact feeling. And what we're going to find is pretty surprising. Turns out, your mind isn't working against you. It might actually be trying to protect you.
So it almost always starts with this one quiet little thought, right? I'm just overreacting. It's that first whisper of self-doubt that creeps in whenever a situation feels, well, just a little bit off.
And you know what comes next, right? That thought is usually followed by another one, and this one's a little harsher. It's the moment we start to criticize ourselves, turning the blame inward. We tell ourselves, hey, the problem isn't the situation, it's me.
And boom, that's it. That 1-2 punch of self-doubt and self-blame, it creates this whole story that can keep you stuck. It's like you've closed the case on your own feelings, dismissing that initial gut reaction and just letting the uncomfortable thing keep happening. Okay, so to really get this, let's zoom in on the person at the center of our story. If you were to look at her from the outside, you think everything was totally fine, stable, put together.
I mean, look at the stats. She's 27, she's independent, she's capable. She's the kind of person her friends would probably call emotionally mature. From the outside looking in, her life looks solid. Like, she has it all figured out.
But on the inside, it's a totally different story. There's this persistent, quiet unease. It's not some sharp pain or a big obvious fear. No, it's more subtle than that. It's like this low, constant tension, almost like background noise that she's gotten so used to, she's pretty much learned to ignore it. So where does that feeling go? I mean, that low-grade tension has to show up somewhere in her daily life, right? Let's take a look at the really subtle ways her mind started to deal with this inner conflict.
And it all starts with these little things. Moments that seem so insignificant you'd barely notice them. You know, like her partner not texting back for hours. A little pang of doubt pops up. She might even run through a whole conversation in her head about what to say, but then she decides against it. Why? Because a bigger fear kicks in. The fear of being seen as dramatic, of being that person.
And this is where her mind gets really good at its job. It becomes an expert at coming up with explanations for behavior that's making her uncomfortable. These rationalizations are like a buffer, right? They effectively silence her own gut feelings and give her a reason not to act. And what this does is it creates this powerful psychological loop. It's a cycle. First, you feel uneasy. Then, you blame yourself for feeling that way. After that, you lower your expectations. And the goal of all of this? To find some peace. But here's the crucial part. This cycle isn't meant to be self-destructive. Not at all. It's actually a survival strategy, designed to keep things stable, even if that stability is super fragile.
So you can imagine, running that loop over and over again has to have a cost, right? Over time, all these little moments of silencing yourself, well, they start to add up, and they have a really profound effect.
The change is so subtle you might not even notice it at first. It's this slow fade. Think about it. Before, she laughed a lot. She spoke her mind freely. She just felt like herself. But after? The laughter doesn't come as easily. She hesitates before she speaks. It's like she started unconsciously asking for permission just to have her own feelings.
And nobody told her to be this way, right? This wasn't some external command. It was an internal lesson. Through repetition, day in and day out, her mind learned a simple equation. Silence feels safer than conflict. The main goal becomes safety, even if it's kind of a false sense of it.
So this pattern of self-silencing just keeps going, day after day. It becomes the new normal. Until one quiet evening. That's when a moment of just profound clarity breaks through all that internal noise. You know, you'd think the big breakthrough would come from some huge, dramatic fight. But it didn't. It was the complete opposite. It happened in a moment of quiet, repetitive frustration. She's just sitting there, alone on her bed, phone in her hand, rewriting the same simple text message for the 10th time. And as she's staring at that screen, a question just pops into her head, and it changes everything. It's not about him anymore, it's not about the situation, it's about her. For the first time, she really truly looks at her own fear. And here's the game changer. For the very first time, she doesn't blame herself for feeling scared. And that small, but absolutely massive, shift in her perspective is what allows her to finally understand the psychology that's been running the show all along. What she was going through is actually a well-known psychological defense mechanism. It's called minimization. Think of it this way. Your brain is faced with two options. The pain you know, which is familiar, versus the complete uncertainty and chaos of change. A lot of the time, the brain will choose the devil it knows. It downplays the pain you're in right now because, hey, at least it's predictable. So this completely reframes everything, doesn't it? Her mind's reaction wasn't a failure. It wasn't weak. It was a protective strategy. It was using the only tool it had, minimization, to shield her from what it thought were even bigger threats: loss, rejection, total emotional chaos.
Now look, this single insight didn't magically fix everything overnight. Of course not. But it was like a key. It unlocked something she desperately, desperately needed.
It gave her permission. That's it. Permission to actually trust her gut when it felt like something was wrong. Permission to stop making her needs smaller and smaller just to fit into a situation. And maybe most importantly, permission to finally accept that feeling too much is often just what it feels like to be telling the truth.
And this leaves us with a really powerful final thought. Sometimes the most dangerous lie we ever face isn't one that somebody else tells us. It's that quiet little story our own mind whispers, just to keep us from leaving what feels familiar, even when it's hurting us. So the real question becomes, what happens when you finally give yourself permission to listen to a different story?